Grace and Ray lay huddled in the bathtub as the sounds died down in the hallway. Eventually, Ray climbed out cautiously and scowled at the pinky-sized hole in the wall a foot or two above the edge of the bathtub. "It's okay. Come on," he grunted as he clambered to the edge of the tub, and then helped Grace sit up. Every joint in his body was screaming at him at once at an octave generally reserved for calling dogs as he forced himself to his feet. "Hell, I'm getting old," he thought, resignedly as he worked at a stiff spot in the small of his back. He slipped up to the bathroom door and peeked out, then tiptoed across the living room to the front door. Ray held his breath as he pressed his face against the peephole and tried to get a look at what was in the hall. He looked over his shoulder, then when he felt Grace's hand between his shoulder blades, his face twisted into a grimace. There was a low neighing noise like an animal with his leg stuck in a trap coming through the door from somewhere out of sight. The woman hurried into the kitchen and, after rustling around in some drawers, came back with a long knife in each hand. She handed one to Ray and then nodded towards the front door. He nodded back and put a hand on the doorknob and leaned out into the hall when then he eased out and motioned for Grace to follow. Oh shit," Ray whispered, reaching behind him to slap at the woman behind him. Grace scowled, confused until she realized that the handful of people lying on the floor were starting to move. "Yeah," she muttered, then walked past Ray even as the bodies stirred. A woman's hand brushed at her ankle when she picked her way towards what looked like a man who had stolen her gun, lying on his stomach. She bent and pried the pistol from the man's hand, swung back a wave of revulsion at the mess of pulp that used to be the man's head. "Which way?" Grace hissed as she stood and glanced down at the pistol. Ray looked around, ran his fingers through his thinning hair. Grace noticed an empty shell casing pitched between the barrel and the slide of the pistol, and was secretly astounded when her hands cleared the malfunction seemingly on their own. She ejected the magazine, regarding the remaining rounds with a slight frown. As she slapped it back into the weapon, a hand closed around her ankle and she kicked it away with a cry of disgust. "Ray, which way?" she asked again in an urgent hiss through clenched teeth as she made her way back to him. Already, a man behind her was struggling to his feet, his shirt stained a dark red of a horrific gash in his chest. A few more moved their limbs experimentally, as if trying to figure out how the flesh and bone attached to their torsos worked. "This way. There's another way down over here," Ray muttered, as he grabbed Grace's arm and pulled her in after him. He looked at the kitchen knife in his hand and nearly laughed. It seemed rather small and pathetic, even if the blade was nearly 9 inches long. They rounded a corner just as a second man and a small woman tried to get to their feet. The first began to stumble after them down the dimly lit hallway. A head poked out of a door a few feet down. Hey, Ray called as he hurried to meet the person. "Come on, out here and help. Vince went nuts. We gotta..." The young man slammed the door in Ray's face and he heard a deadbolt clack into place. He roared in frustration and slammed the palm of his hand against the door. Grace raised her pistol and took careful aim at the first men shambling around in the corner. "What are we going to do, Ray?" She shot the man a look as the shambling gray form slumped closer, his head lolling listlessly to side with each step. A shiver ran down her spine when she noticed the way that his eyes seemed to track her, even if his head shifted. An image popped into her head of a large man in a movie screen sitting in a police car, scanning the parking garage with his eyes, then turning his head. The salty, buttery taste of popcorn, the coolness of an air-conditioned movie theater. Where the hell did that come from? Grace thought, the corner of her mouth curving downward in a tiny perturbed frown as she realigned her sights, trying to anticipate the shifting target of the man's forehead. "How many bullets you got?" Ray asked, glancing down the hall. The way ahead was clear, but there was, at least a half-dozen or so of the former tenants coming after him. A muffled scream, a dull thumping reaching for somewhere in the corner. Ray and Grace looked at each other, then Grace squeezed the trigger. The man's head snapped back and he dropped to the floor in a heap, one of his toes twitching spasmodically. Grace took a deep breath, biting her bottom lip as she watched the man take another shaky step towards them. "3," she said, her hand brushing the pouch in her belt. "2 more mags." A short, gore-covered woman shambled around the corner as Grace struggled with the snap of the mag pouch, preparing to get ready to reload the pistol. The screams went up an octave or two, and she glanced over her shoulder again. "Damn it," she hissed, and put a round through the old woman's throat, then raised her sights a few inches and fired again, dropping the woman in a heap on the floor. Ray looked over his shoulder again. There was a doorway to the stairwell a few dozen feet away. Just a few paces and they could be in the stairwell and out of immediate danger. "Yeah," he grumbled, and stepped around the woman, headed back the way they'd come.